All right, Lou, let me tell you what we can say right now based on the exit polls that we've been tracking throughout the day. What we can tell you is that Bob McDonnell, the Republican candidate for governor of Virginia, he is leading Creed Deeds, the Democratic candidate, right now. When we are able to project a winner, we will certainly do so. But at this early stage, only a minute or two into the after the polls have formally closed in Virginia, we can report that the Republican, as expected, is leading, but we are not yet able to project a winner. As soon as we get that number, as soon as we are able to do so, we'll come back and we'll let you know. But in the meantime, it looks like the Republican is certainly leading over the Democrat. It's very early in the actual counting. As we reported earlier, Lou, based on the exit polls, the Republican Bob McDonnell is leading Creed Deeds, the Democrat. But take a look at this. With 1% of the precincts reporting now, McDonnell has 67% to 33% for Creed Deeds, 23,600 or so for McDonnell, 11,389 for Creed Deeds. But it's only 1% of the precincts reporting. It's going to be a while longer before we will know who will win this race. So we're standing by as soon as we get some more numbers. We're reviewing the exit polls to see if we can make a projection. But so far, Lou, we cannot make a projection. The only thing we can say based on those exit polls is that McDonnell, the Republican, is leading the Democrat, Creed Deeds. Well, the polls have been closed for about 45 minutes, Lou. We can only report right now based on the exit polls that the Republican candidate, Bob McDonnell, is leading the Democratic candidate, Creed Deeds. But let's take a look at the actual numbers that are coming in right now, with about 15% of the precincts reporting. It looks more lopsided than it is, 65% for McDonnell, 35% for Creed Deeds. That's a 82,480 advantage, 182,000 to 100,000. But if you take a look at where these votes are coming in from, you can see the red areas. Those are largely Republican areas that have already started to report. If you look up in Fairfax County in the north, the northern part of Virginia, the Washington, D.C. suburbs, very few votes have come in so far from there. That's why it looks a lot more lopsided than it apparently is going to be. But right now, we can only project that it's that the Republican is leading right now, but we can't project a winner, not yet, Lou. Well, as you know, Campbell, the polls closed in Virginia an hour ago, and now just a few seconds ago, we have projected a winner in Virginia, the Republican Bob McDonnell. We project he will be the next governor of Virginia, beating Creed Deeds. He's the Democratic candidate, with 32% of the precincts now reporting 64% for Bob McDonnell, almost 400,000 votes, to 36% for Creed Deeds, 219,000 votes. It'll narrow as we get in, but take a look at the precincts that have started to report already. All the red, that's for the Republican, the blue for the Democrat. Take a look up in Fairfax County, though. No, the results haven't come in yet. That's a largely Democratic area, the northern Virginia suburbs of Washington, D.C. As a result, the gap will narrow, but we have projected that Bob McDonnell will become the next governor of Virginia. In New Jersey, we're watching that race right now. The polls are just closing in New Jersey, and as you know, John Corzine, the incumbent. Well, before we get to New Jersey, let's talk about New York City. The race for mayor of New York will close in 1 hour. We know that the incumbent, Michael Bloomberg, is running for a third term. Bill Thompson, the Democrat, is challenging him, but Bloomberg has spent a lot of his own money, and he's according to the polls, likely to win. But that poll closes in less than an hour from now in New York. If we take a look in New Jersey and in New York, the congressional district that we're following the special election in upstate New York. Let's talk about New Jersey. Those polls have just closed in New Jersey just a couple minutes ago, and three candidates running. Chris Christie is the Republican, challenging John Corzine, the Democratic incumbent. Chris Daggett is the independent third-party candidate. Right now, we have not been able to project a winner based on the exit polling. In New York, we'll take a look at New York's Congressional District 23. A lot of interest, as you know, Campbell, in this district. Didi Skozafava, the Republican candidate, she dropped out over the weekend, so it's really a two-man contest now between the Democrat Bill Owens and the conservative Doug Hoffman. The polls there closed 9 p.m. Eastern, so we'll watch all of that. Campbell, back to you. That's right, Campbell. In addition to projecting that the Republican candidate would become the next governor of Virginia, we're now ready to project that there will effectively be a sweep for the Republicans in the state of Virginia. Bill Bolling, the Republican lieutenant governor candidate, he will be reelected. We're projecting that Bolling will win. He will beat Jody Wagner. And for Attorney General, Ken Cuccinelli, the Republican candidate, will defeat Steve Shannon. So a big night for the Republicans in Virginia. So it looks like the Republicans are going to sweep all three of these statewide contests: the governor's race, the lieutenant governor's race, and the contest for Attorney General of Virginia. So it's shaping up, at least in Virginia, Campbell, as a big night for the GOP. Well, we have projected that the Republicans will have a clean sweep in Virginia. The race for governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, the Republicans will win all three. But in New Jersey right now, we have not been able to project a winner, but we do have some actual votes that are coming in right now in New Jersey in this three-man race. Chris Christie, the Republican candidate, with 51%, only 1% of the precincts are now in, 16,306 votes. 40% for John Corzine, the Democrat incumbent. Chris Daggett, he's the third-party independent candidate with 8% of the vote, 2,500. Remember, this is very early. If you take a look at the map, you see the red, that big chunk along the coast there, the Atlantic coast. That's a largely Republican area. That's why it's showing that Chris Christie, those early votes coming in. But it's still a lot of counties up in New Jersey that have yet to be counted. So we'll watch this closely, but we're in no shape to project a winner in New Jersey by any means. Campbell? All right, Larry, thanks very much. Let me update our viewers here in the United States and around the world. We'll do New Jersey right now. The polls closed in New Jersey 1 hour ago, and we're not able to project a winner in New Jersey yet. But look at this. With 18% of the precincts in, the Republican challenger, Chris Christie, with 52% of the vote. John Corzine, the Democrat incumbent, 42% of the vote. Chris Daggett, he's the independent third-party candidate, 6% of the vote, less than 20% of the precincts in. If you take a look at the state of New Jersey, you see, though, where those votes are coming in. If we can get that up there, maybe we can't. Here it is. You see that the red are Republican and the blue is Democrat. You see still a lot of areas in northern New Jersey that haven't come in yet, so I suspect this will get closer than it is right now, but we are not yet ready to project a winner. In Virginia, we have projected a winner, and it's a clean sweep for the Republicans. Bob McDonnell, the Republican Attorney General, he becomes the next governor of Virginia, beating Creed Deeds. 81% of the precincts are in at 60 to 40%. It looks very impressive for the Republicans. They go on to win the Attorney General's slot as well as the Lieutenant Governor's slot in Virginia. The Lieutenant Governor will be Bill Bolling. The Attorney General, Ken Cuccinelli. A clean sweep for the Republicans. New York City, there's a race. The polls have just closed in New York State. The incumbent, Michael Bloomberg, the independent candidate, running for a third term against the Democrat, Bill Thompson. We have not been able to project a winner of that yet. The polls have literally just closed. Another important race we're watching in New York State, a special congressional election in the 23rd District. Didi Skozafava has dropped out. She was the official Republican candidate. It's now a two-man race between Democrat Bill Owens and a conservative Doug Hoffman. We're watching this to see what trends they will show, Larry, for the country. So lots still unfolding. We have a lot of results still coming in. There are some other important mayor races out there. We'll update you with all of it during the course of the next hour, Larry. Yeah, I'll give you the latest that we have, Larry. No exit polls in the New York City mayoral race or in the district, the 23rd District. But what we know right now in New York City, the incumbent mayor, Michael Bloomberg, running for a third term with 5% of the precincts reporting. He's at 54%. Bill Thompson, the Democratic candidate, 43%. What, about 50,000 votes have been counted so far. In New York, the congressional district, the 23rd congressional district, she's still on the ballot. That's why you see some numbers up there, 1% of the vote in Didi Skozafava, but she took her name off. She was the official Republican candidate. Right now, Bill Owens, the Democratic candidate, slightly ahead, but it's very, very early right now, 51-45%. Only a few hundred votes have been counted so far. So we'll stay on top of it, Larry, and give you all the latest as soon as we get it. But very early in the ballot counting in New York State. Anderson, in New Jersey right now, it's still pretty close. 80% of the precincts have now reported. But Chris Christie, the Republican challenger, with 50%. John Corzine, the Democratic incumbent, 44%. Chris Daggett, the third-party independent, with 6% of the vote. 80% of the precincts are in. Almost 100,000 votes ahead for Chris Christie. He's looking pretty good, but it's not over with yet. We're going to continue to count these ballots before we project a winner. In New York State, there are two races we're covering very closely right now. Let's go to the mayoral race in New York City. 73% of the precincts have now reported. 50% for Michael Bloomberg, the independent incumbent, with 389,000 votes. 372,000 votes for Bill Thompson, 47%. Relatively close. A lot of people thought it wouldn't be that close, but 73% of the precincts in. In New York, 23rd Congressional District, the special election. Bill Owens, the Democrat, is slightly ahead of Doug Hoffman, the conservative, 51 to 44%. But Didi Scozafava, she's got 5% of the vote, even though she was the official Republican candidate. She took her name off the, she withdrew over the weekend, but her name remains on the ballot. Some people are still voting for her. That 5%, if it's really close, could make a difference. So we're still watching this. 33% of the precincts in New York's upstate New York now reporting in. Anderson?
We're going to be able to project something in New Jersey. Let's go to Wolf.
Anderson, thanks very much. CNN can now project that the Republican challenger, Chris Christie, will win the election for governor of New Jersey. John Corzine will lose. Chris Christie, the former prosecutor, he goes ahead. 81% of the vote has now been counted. He's got 50% to 44% for John Corzine. But this is another pickup for the Republicans. They have won the gubernatorial election in Virginia. Now the other major gubernatorial contest in New Jersey goes to the Republican as well. So this is a big, big win for the GOP tonight, Anderson. It's something they wanted desperately. And you know what? It looks like they're going to get it. Michael Bloomberg, Anderson, we project will be reelected for a third term as the mayor of New York City. 96% of the votes have now been counted. Bloomberg with 51% to Bill Thompson, the Democrat, 46%. Michael Bloomberg once was a Democrat, became a Republican, now an independent. He will be reelected as the mayor of New York City. Spent a lot of his own money to do that. In New York's special election, the congressional district, the 23rd district, with 54% of the precincts now reporting, the Democrat, Bill Owens, is slightly ahead of the conservative, Doug Hoffman, 49% to 46%. He's ahead by 2,300 votes. Look at Didi Scozafava. She was the Republican candidate, although her name is still on the ballot, even though she dropped out over the weekend. She's got about 4,300 votes so far. She could make a difference if this is really, really close, as it's shaping up to be. There hasn't been a Democrat elected in this district in more than 100 years, but Bill Owens right now with 54%, slightly ahead of the conservative Doug Hoffman. So we're watching all these races. Anderson, we'll get back to you once we know more. Let's take a look at New York. In the mayoral race in New York City, it's a lot closer than a lot of people thought, but Michael Bloomberg, the billionaire Republican turned independent now, will be reelected for a third term. 97% of the vote is now in New York. Bloomberg wins. We still don't know what's going to happen in the congressional district in upstate New York, the special election, New York's 23rd district. Right now, the Democrat, Bill Owens, slightly ahead of the conservative, Doug Hoffman. The Republican candidate, Didi Scozafava, she had dropped out of the race, saying she wanted to vote for Bill Owens, the Democrat, but she's still getting about 5% of the vote. Some people voting for her, even though she dropped out. Those 5,367 votes so far. Potentially, we don't know, but potentially could make a difference because Bill Owens is ahead by 3,900 votes over Doug Hoffman. There hasn't been a Democrat elected in this district, Anderson, in more than 100 years.
Another vote we're watching closely tonight is in Maine, where voters are deciding whether a new law permitting same-sex marriage should stand. It's a referendum. It was passed in May, but it's yet to take effect. Right now, the results are 50-50. Voters evenly split. That's with 37% of the precincts reporting. We don't have real-time results in the race, so the numbers are lagging a bit, maybe changing as we speak.